should communicate his knowledge to the enemy. Under Article 109, nor over his property. The property of an individual with full disposal rights of all the fruits for himself and to share with others, not be taken by others of the Creator's property, does not cease to belong to him on account of his being a foreign country. It still constitutes a part of the aggregate wealth of his nation. So let me just stop a second. What this is basically saying is, just because you're here in the United States does not mean you cease to exist to be your own, they use the word nation, or you can even say person to some degree, or your own man. They really have no right, the government, the state, just to take from you and make a presumption that you're a surety. However, under their rules, you are always allowed to volunteer. But what they fail to do is, for instance, if you say, I am John Doe, the lawyers don't ever say, or the state doesn't ever say, well, you can't be John Doe, that's property of the state. So what they do is they ensnare you into a trap so you become a belligerent under their rules, and then you become liable. But from my perspective, what this does is it puts you not only as a suretyship, but they profit from your error, your unrealized error. And this is the problem I seem to have with all this. Again, I'm not looking to challenge authority. Good luck if they think, we're all going to eventually die. Good luck that they can take, all this money, all this worthless paper Federal Reserve notes with them after they die, or they, whatever they think. I don't know what they think, because none of us take anything when we leave this planet. We just take our soul. But again, this is where I just do not understand what others hope to gain from others, people making profit. But anyway, let me continue. Any power, therefore, which the lord of the territory might claim over the property of a foreigner would be equally derogatory to the rights of the individual owner and to those of the nation of which he is a member. And finally, under Article 110, who are the heirs of the foreigner? Since the foreigner still continues to be a citizen of his own country and a member of his own nation, the property he leaves at his death in a foreign country ought naturally to devolve to those who are his heirs according to the laws of the state of which he is a member. But notwithstanding this general rule, his immovable effects are to be disposed of according to the laws of the country where they are situated. As the right of making a will or of disposing of his fortune in case of death is a right resulting from property, it cannot without injustice be taken from the foreigner. And that is a really strong statement. Let me reread it. As the right of making a will or of disposing of his fortune in case of death is a right resulting from property, it cannot without injustice be taken from a foreigner. The foreigner, therefore, by natural right has the liberty of making a will, but it is asked by what laws is he obliged to regulate himself, either in the form of his testament or in the disposal of his property. So, one minute we have our own property, and the next minute it looks like there comes this question. In paraphrasing Articles 107 through 110, the foreigner or man ought to be considered a member of his own nation, or free unto himself as he is a nation unto himself, and to be treated with respect. The state does not have any authority to aggregate herself any power over the person of the foreigner. However, I do interpret this to mean the state always has power or jurisdiction over its own property. And that's an important statement I put in parentheses, because the title or the name is state property, so they always have jurisdiction over their property. However, this foreigner can and will be subjected to the state's law if said foreigner acts as a belligerent in this host country by making a claim to state property. Then I put that in parentheses. The foreigner's property, natural inherent rights, does not cease being his property by virtue of his inhabitation in this territory. His property, in parentheses, natural supreme rights ordained by his creator, end parentheses, is still part of his nation. It would be repulsive to public policy to take another's property. Ultimately, the host nation, or the United States, has no right over the person of the foreigner, nor his property, unless the foreigner dies in the host nation, and I put in parentheses, or is lost at sea, presumed dead civilly, because you have to remember, the state has no jurisdiction over men, so how do they deal with the man? They have to presume that he is dead, or civilly dead, obviously not common sense dead, but we're talking legally dead. Then his immovable effects, or real estate, or the estate, are to be disposed of according to the laws of the country where they are situated. This can be interpreted to suggest that under the laws of a country, if the country presumes by operation of law certain facts such as death in absentia, the laws of the country would be applicable to those foreigners who are missing, lost at sea, or presumed dead, also known as civilly dead, and the country would have every legal authority to do with as it pleases with said foreigner or his property. Under Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 33, Section 16, Jurisdictional Requisites, the death of a person on whose estate administration is sought is a jurisdictional requisite, while the presumption of death arising from absence may present a prima facie case sufficient to warrant a grant of administration. If it subsequently develops that such person is in fact alive, the administration is void. The foreigner or man becomes a belligerent when he makes a claim to the property owned by the state, which said property is a name, title, estate, person, and as such wars against the occupant, United States, Inc., and under the rules of war, the state has the legal authority by operation of law to treat said person as a belligerent, as the one warring against the occupancy under the rules of that jurisdiction. It could be said that the one making claim consents or accepts by operation of law through an act of belligerency to act as surety for an estate or trust, thus becoming the executor or trustee. Number 17. The 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states under Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Section 4 of the 14th Amendment. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection and rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Number 18. Under the Libra Code, Article 7, martial law extends to property and to persons whether they are subjects of the enemy or aliens to that government. Summary of the 14th Amendment. Please note the phrase, all persons. It does not say all men or women, nor baby, but rather the word persons. Under Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, the definition of a person. And this is the definition. In general usage, a human being, i.e. natural person, through by statute term may include labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. So you realize when you say you're a person, it's an association, corporation, a trustee, etc., etc. It's a fiction of law. It's a factitious entity. Going on, scope and delineation of the term is necessary for determining those to whom 14th Amendment of Constitution affords protection, since this amendment expressly applies to person. Aliens are persons within the meaning of 14th Amendment and are thus protected by Equal Protection Clause against discriminatory state action. Interested person include heirs, devisors, children, spouses, creditors, beneficiaries, and others having a property right in or claim against a trust estate or the estate of a decedent, because remember we're considered civilly dead, ward or protected person which may be affected by the proceeding. It also includes persons having priority for appointment as personal representative and other fiduciaries representing interested persons. The meaning as it relates to particular persons may vary from time to time and must be determined according to the particular purpose of and matter involved in any proceeding. Uniform Probate Code. It can also be noted under Black's 4th edition that each person is an infant, and they quote a case law, Madden versus Springfield. Persons are subject of rights and duties, and as subject of a right, the person is the object of the correlative duty, and conversely. A person is such not because he is human, but because rights and duties are ascribed to him. Golly. The person is the legal subject or substance of which the rights and duties are attributes. Incredible. In a very telling description of the meaning person, it includes alien, creditor, beneficiary, trustee, fiduciary, and corporation, individual, and entity. In our common everyday language, most people could have an opinion that a man or woman is a person, but in the legal world, person has a different meaning. With martial law extending to property and persons, whether they are subjects to the enemy or aliens to the government, foreign inhabitant, this suggests that under martial law, property and person, whether friend or foe, or under the jurisdiction thereof, are subject to the occupancy of the United States, Inc. The 14th Amendment continues, the validity of the debt shall not be questioned, and by whom shall this not be questioned? U.S. citizens or franchisees of the United States, Inc. What could be the probability that this amendment, when enacted in 1868, though there is doubt this was enacted properly, and that's under the Diet versus Turner case, was done to fund government operations as the country, the Republic, was bankrupt. The point of the above is not to go through a history lesson, but rather to try and connect the dots and grasp how the system or government under a national emergency or bankruptcy operates, and the reason why. Based on this information, as well as other areas of study, it is my opinion that the system or foreign government was set up accordingly to fund its operations. At the time, there were not too many options available. I suspect the system was not created with the intent to conscript or enslave people permanently, but rather to continue operations while protecting the society overall, and to deal with the belligerents in a certain manner consistent with Emergency War Powers Acts, and leave the peaceful inhabitants alone until such time as the suspended republic could be returned as intended. Over time, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Over time, the system had come to make a behind-the-scenes elite very wealthy, while the masses suffer the consequences. And the following is an unverified quote from Colonel Edward Mandell House. And this is how the quote goes. It doesn't matter if he ever said it or didn't, but ultimately it's appropriate for the purpose of this discussion. And here's the quote. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people, and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattels, and we will hold the security interest over them forever by operation of law of merchant under the scheme of secure transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly deliver the bills of lading or birth certificate to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure our plans, and if by accident one or two should figure it out, we have an arsenal of plausible deniability. Isn't that great? I love that term, plausible deniability. Obama uses that term quite a bit. After all, this is our only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debts to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office presidency of our dummy corporation, USA, to foment this plot against America. And again, it's not a verified quote, but it does sum up the situation quite appropriately. This, and continuing, this is a very interesting commentary, non-reliable source-based quote by Edward Mandell House, supposedly in a private meeting with then-President Woodrow Wilson. Whether the quote is accurate or not, there appears to be evidence that supports these thoughts through UNIDROID, or International Institute for the Unification of Private Law. The United States joined this in 1964. The UNIDROID agenda appears to commercialize everything under the sun. And again, the question comes up, under what authority does any man or group of men have to privatize for personal, even though fictional, profit and gain under privately owned credit, thus forcing other men to submit as slaves? The Creator of all men freely and abundantly gave this earth in usufruct, that's a very important word, usufruct, to all his created. The continued course of private debt funding government operations and its consequences are demonstrated by the Grace Commission's 19